Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche, and second in my series about feeding wild birds native plants and really making a concerted effort to provide those plants that are the foundation for their natural diets. Um, this week, I wanted to talk to you about native plants that provide small seeds for birds like our finches, our goldfinches, and other small seed eating bird species. It's been interesting. I've seen different posts about plant goldfinch gardens and grow your own bird seed. So the post I provided last week was meant to help you weed out, pun intended, the non-native garden plants from the things that are actually native near you. So if you missed that post, back up, check that out. I gave you the tools you needed to figure out what plants are native to my area to support my native birds. And to help you get from that to what will work well for your particular landscape, make sure you check out Mondays with Martha number 56, where I talk about a process for selecting native plant species for your particular landscape. Today I'm going to give some different plant groups that these little seed-eating birds really love. Many of our smallest to medium-sized songbirds specialize in eating small seeds. And this includes our American goldfinches who are with us throughout the year, some of our winter visitors, including pine siskins and common redpolls. It also includes some of our sparrow species, and I'll talk more about other foods for them next week as well. But it also includes our winter visiting evening grosbeaks, as well as red crossbills. This is a yellow-headed blackbird, a state special concern species that eats small seeds in the non-nesting season. And I just love looking into my native gardens and other landscapes and looking for those acrobatic abilities of these seed-eating birds. I look for the swaying or bobbing plants and watch them happily forage on the native plant resources that I'm providing. So let's talk about things that you can either keep in your landscape that are already there naturally, or things that you can purposefully plant native species wise. This certainly isn't an all-inclusive post, but it's going to be a great start for you, and I'm going to focus on species that are readily available in the native plant nursery and seed trades, and we're going to work ground up from ground cover through shrubs and vines to trees. So from an herbaceous perspective, some of the best things you can plant are species in the aster or daisy family. This is the Asteraceae. So you can see here I have a little goldfinch. It is working on probably some sand coreopsis. That's Coreopsis lanceolata. Tall coreopsis, Coreopsis tripteris is another species. Also the genus Helianthus, the sunflower. So I have woodland sunflower, Helianthus divaricatus, and western sunflower, Helianthus occidentalis, in this native planting out in front of my store. You can also plant things like blazing star. That's also known as gay feather. That's the genus Liatris. So you should be able, even if you're not in Michigan, often there are native Liatris species in your area. So that's the magenta flower on the left there. Another common native plant, kind of pollinator garden species with small seeds is Echinacea, or purple coneflower. We have purpurea and pallida, the pale purple coneflower, as species native or nearly native to the state of Michigan. And also in the Asteraceae family, we have a wealth of native asters in the genera Symphyotrichum and Eurybia, and goldenrods in the genus Solidago, as well as common yarrow, Achillea millefolium, mountain mints in the genus Pycnanthemum, and boneset and Joe Pye weeds in the genera Eupatorium and Eutrochium. White snakeroot, Agaritina altissima, that the dark-eyed junco was enjoying earlier in this video, as well as our black-eyed Susans in the genus Rudbeckia and yellow coneflower in the genus Retibita. So we have lots of really nice native plants in that aster or daisy family that you can choose from. In researching plants to share with you, I did circle back to this Audubon Native Plants database that I showed you at the end of last week's post. I felt like it was limiting my options because it is zip code based. So I actually ended up pulling up a zip code. This is a Kalamazoo, Michigan zip code, putting that in just to help get me some additional species that I know maybe haven't ever been reported in Midland, or for whatever reason in this database aren't associated with my Midland zip code. And then I played around with the filters. So just putting in annuals and perennials for this first group of plants I wanted to discuss, the resources the plants provide to nuts and seeds, and just clicking on the Finches group to see what it came up with. So let me take you back to page 1 here. So there are all sorts of great perennial plants in here. Canada goldenrod is an example of a species that you probably, very likely already have or will establish on its own. So something you can conserve rather than have to actively plant. I would say common milkweed is another one of those species, although you can. The nurseries do offer it. And you can plant it on purpose, as is the case with butterfly milkweed. Here's the yarrow I mentioned and the purple coneflower I mentioned, and then lots of great examples of aster species. I noticed that the Audubon website has some interesting, kind of less commonly used common names. So this is calico aster, Symphyotrichum lateriflorum, Oldfield goldenrod, Solidago nemuralis, stiff goldenrod. And so this shows you lots of great species, different things in that Helianthus, the sunflower genus. Another species that you might already have that you could just conserve is common evening primrose, Anathera biennis. Here's the sand coreopsis that I showed you in my garden in front of my store. An example species of mountain mint, and more asters. New England aster is a lovely one, as is showy goldenrod, smooth aster, wild geranium. So not in the Asteraceae. This is a nice early blooming native plant that will take some shade. So another example. Spotted touch-me-not, Impatiens capensis would be another one that you may have. It's hard to get in the nursery trade, but one you could conserve on your property. And more species of milkweed. Here's the tall coreopsis I mentioned. More sunflowers. You do need to take this database with a grain of salt. For example, this particular Artemisia species is state threatened, and it's unlikely that you would find it in the native plant nursery trade, at least in the state of Michigan. But blue stem goldenrod and rough goldenrod are all great choices as well. So I would encourage you to play around with these different filters and with the zip code. Don't hold yourself to just what's showing up for your zip code, because there are a lot of great species native to your particular state that you can draw from. In wrapping up the Asteraceae family, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our native thistles. So again, some you might be able to get in the nursery trade, but more often than not, this will be something that you're conserving on your landscape that'll blow in the wind or get dispersed naturally, and you can just not treat them. So you want to make sure you can tell the difference between your native and your invasive thistles. This one is pasture thistles, Cirsium discolor, one of our native ones, a beautiful one that the pollinators and the goldfinches and other finches will love. Both eating the seeds, and they collect the fluff for because they are late season nesters. That's available to help line their nests when they are nesting in June and July. So just make sure you're not keeping invasive species like Canada thistle, Cirsium arvense, and bull thistle, Cirsium vulgare. And yeah, learn our nice native ones. We have swamp thistle, Cirsium muticum. Rare thistle species, Hill's thistle, Hilley, is a state special concern, and pitcher's thistle, Cirsium pitcheri, is both state and federally listed as threatened. So you certainly want to conserve those species. Thinking of other plants in my own yard, other ecosystems, and doing other research that you can consider Monarda. So these are some American goldfinches on my Monarda fistulosa, bee balm or wild bergamot. We also have Monarda punctata, and species in the genus Verbena, our native vervains, our native lobelias like cardinal flower and great blue lobelia, our beard tongues in the genus Penstemon, and giant yellow hyssop in the Agastache genus. So there are a number of other great native plants with small seeds that can be offered up to support our finch species. And of course, don't forget our native grasses. I feel like our native grasses just do not get enough love. So if you go in and change this filter to grasses in the Audubon native plant database here, you'll see some of our native grasses. Again, I'm using the Kalamazoo zip code, but play around with that. Species like prairie cordgrass, our little blue stem, prairie dropseed, side oats grama, switchgrass, Indian grass. There are some great options out there. I noticed this didn't have big blue stem, but there's another one, and then all of our native sedges. They're not even touched by this database, but they're definitely ones you can buy and ones that you may already have in your landscape that you can preserve and help feed those small seeds or grains, if you will, of the grasses. Are great food resource for our finches as well. Before I leave the herbaceous things, I just wanted to reiterate that species like the thistles, the asters, goldenrods, the milkweeds, and then our native cattail, Typha latifolia, those all have fluff that the goldfinches in particular can use for nesting. Moving on to our native woody plants and searching under the filter with shrubs and vines just to see what would come up. Hamamelis virginiana, our native witch hazel, is an excellent shrub species. beaked hazelnut, Corylus cornuta, also Corylus americana is another native species, and buttonbush, Cephalanthus occidentalis, all provide small seeds for our finch species. And I never like to use just one resource, so besides the Audubon Native Plants Database, I like to think about the species in the group that we're talking about. So for example, I'll use Cornell Lab of Ornithology, they're all about birds website, and look up some individuals. And sure enough, we have missed some. So if you click under, say for common redpoll, its life history, I like looking at the habitat notes and the food, and you can see here different types of woods with pine, spruce, alder, birch, and willow. So alders, and there are many willow species that are shrubs, and bog birch is a shrub. So there's some native woody plants of shorter stature that our small finch species will also use, so don't forget about those. And then lastly, taking a look at the larger woody plants under the trees and evergreens filter. Taking a look at that, there's some other excellent native species like American basswood, Tilia americana, American beech, Fagus grandifolia. Our American elm, Ulmus americana, has nice small seeds. Musselwood, and our nice native tamarack with its small cones and little seeds inside those. American sycamore, Platanus occidentalis. Our box elder, those seeds in the helicopters are samara fruit, as well as our native balsam fir. And then for some of our larger grosbeak, larger finch species, the oaks would also, their acorns would be helpful. So more, so that was black oak, and then bur oak, chinkapin oak, another evergreen, our eastern hemlock, Tsuga canadensis, ironwood, so related to and the musselwood that I showed you before, our eastern red cedar, there's seeds in those fleshy cones, and our native pines like eastern white pine, the little seeds that are inside of the pine cones are very helpful. More oak species. You can see birch coming into play here under the trees, our paper birch, Betula peperifera, and more oak species. And more maple species, our red maple, things like red bud with the legumes for fruit, shagbark hickory. I'm guessing this is again for those larger grosbeak group, and more maples, silver and sugar, more oak species, the seeds of tulip tree, Liriodendron tulipifera. So those are some great examples, and remember that for our tree species and our shrub species, those woody plants, not only do they provide seed resources, but also nesting sites for many of our finch species here during the nesting season. Further to the south, tree species like sweet gum, and to the north, cedars, spruces, and some larger tree willow species, and out west, Douglas fir also play an important role. So I know that was a lot of native plants to throw at you, but I hope that helps you better understand what we can keep and add to our landscapes to help support our native finch species. Take care and have a good week.